Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining today's iTrain session on blockchain opportunities and challenges. Let's wait a few more minutes until a few more people join in. Thank you. All right. Once again, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you can hear me and if you can see the presentation that's put up, please write in the chat box. Yes, you can see the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. So please write in yes, if you can see it. And one more thing, please opt to turn off the microphone and video camera during the webinar, so as not to disturb the presenters while they're presenting. Thank you all for your responses. So yes, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining today's iTrain's webinar on blockchain and its opportunities and challenges. So today we are joined by Harpreet Singh Mann, who is a blockchain trainer for iTrain. But yes, before we start, once again, I would like to remind that please opt to turn off the microphone and video camera. And if you have any questions during the presentation towards Harpreet, you can write them in the chat box and the questions will be answered during the Q&A session after the presentation. So, and during the webinar also, please do not opt to choose to present now. On the bottom right-hand screen, you can see that there is an option to present now. Please do not do that during the presentations. Yes, so yeah, otherwise we might need to remove you from the call if that interrupts our presentation. So before we start, I would like to quickly tell you more about iTrain, who is the organizer of this webinar. So iTrain is supporting digital transformation in Asia, and we are the pioneers and leaders in tech learning. And at iTrain, we believe in two core principles: that the power of technology to shape the future and help us build a better world, and that love of learning is a source of human ingenuity and well-being. Our goal, which is also backed by government and academia, is to fast-track Asian businesses with the latest technology, applications, and know-how. So these are some of the courses that are held at iTrain. As you can see, they range from mobile app development, blockchain, as presented today, data science, Internet of Things classes, artificial intelligence that includes both machine learning and deep learning. We have fintech, digital marketing, and cybersecurity. And most of the courses are also HRDF claimable. And as you can see, we have had the opportunity to help and empower businesses across many strategic sectors. So as you can see in finance, technology, industry, and manufacturing. Yes, so that is it from my side. We'll be starting now with Harpreet, but a kind reminder once again, please do mute yourselves during the presentation. And if you have any questions towards Harpreet, please ask them in the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. And one more thing, you will get the presentation and recording of the webinar after you fill out the feedback form. And you will be able to find the feedback form in the chat box as well. And at the end of the presentation, I will show up the link towards the feedback form. And if you have any questions in regards to iTrain courses or towards Harpreet, I will also include the link to iTrain's website and our email address. So, yes, thank you for your attention. And I give the floor back to Harpreet.
Hello?
Hello, Harpreet. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. You can see me now, right?
Yes, we can also see you.
Okay, awesome. So thank you a lot, Elizabeth, for actually organizing this training. And I hope like the people who are actually still on with their cameras to maybe turn it off, just off your webcams. Because I keep seeing whenever people make some noise, I keep seeing the screens popping up in front. Okay, so nevertheless, let me share my screen. Okay, are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, awesome. So first of all, thank you for actually joining us today morning. I know it's a difficult time with all the COVID-19 lockdown happening everywhere. A lot of businesses are also taking the punch. And now at this time, what we can do is definitely to find ways to actually improve business. So even it was a great opportunity presented to me by iTrain to say, hey, come, let's work together on blockchain courses and let's do some webinars to actually spread more awareness. So I'll start by introducing myself. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Blockline. Blockline is a blockchain development company, and we also do consultations, especially technical consultations and trainings. And I'm also the CTO of Verifizer, which is a supply chain management company. And I hold various other positions, mostly towards advisory on government, and also I do support some protocols that are out there to basically get more awareness, get more adoption. But in short, I will just say that I'm more of a techie who actually decided to give it entrepreneurship a try. And so far, it has been great. It has been a great experience. And I kind of liked it, and I sticked around to become an entrepreneur instead. So for today's topic, I'll try to... excuse me? Anybody can mute their mic? Okay. Oh, sorry. It was my alarm. Okay, continuing.
Can't see your screen, Harpreet.
Can I see now?
Yes, we can see your screen, but people, you have to pin it.
Yes, you have to go to my presentation and click the pin icon, and then it will continue to appear on the main screen. Okay, got it? So I'll continue. So the webinar topic today is mostly on blockchain opportunities and its challenges. I decided to first start with what is blockchain, but we definitely can't get into blockchain without understanding its history. So I'll also be explaining a bit about what is Bitcoin. And then I'll be jumping into what are the opportunities in industry. But since a lot of the audience, people from the audience I noticed were from Malaysia, were from the Malaysian industries, I decided to kind of like compile together what would be the opportunities in Malaysia, briefly discussing about what are the areas and potential areas that will be interesting in the Malaysian industry. And also what are some basic challenges in this industry. I think it's quite common everywhere. So the challenges will be a very generic one. So I'll start with, not without wasting any more time, I think I'll start with explaining what is blockchain and more importantly, why it exists. So in the backdrop of 2008 financial crisis, I mean, right after all the US property market collapse, all the economic meltdown that we faced, there's a lot of mistrusts that was actually were created, especially towards bankers and the financial industry and government. And a lot of people were very frustrated and they wanted a way out. And they were questioning the idea, why do government control, like people's hard-earned money, and they have the choices to kind of inflate the prices. So there were like some of the questions that were being raised at that time. And a lot of people were finding new ways. There was like projects like Hashcash, and a few other guys was thinking of building their own currencies and building their own financial systems. But all of them were quickly shut down by the government and they could not exist. But right behind there was some anonymous player. We are not sure, is it a person, is it a guy, or is it a female, or is it a group of people, or is it a government agency? We have no clue, but it goes by the pseudonym called Satoshi Nakamoto. He looked into this opportunity and he noticed that, hey, maybe what if we can create and fully decentralized people-to-people currency. And in 2009, there came Bitcoin. And the ledger mainly started by 3rd January of 2009, about 11 years ago. And a lot of people usually ask me, Harpreet, what exactly is Bitcoin? Why is it important? Why are people there? Why is it a lot of hype about it? So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. It is on a decentralized, it's a decentralized digital currency. It doesn't have a bank behind it. It doesn't have an owner behind it. It generally works on a peer-to-peer network, the network that operates between computers to computers. So there's no main server that it's operating, and it's decentralized in terms of its governance, and it's distributed in terms of its database and its protocol. I think a lot of these technology terms will be very difficult to explain in a 1-hour webinar. But definitely, we would like to get more involved in maybe in some other days. We actually will maybe try to go more deeper. Maybe in future webinars, we'll talk and break down what exactly is Bitcoin and what is blockchain down to every single layer. But to simplify things, today I just want to stick towards what are the true values of Bitcoin. A lot of people usually associate the value just with the value of its current trading prices. Like right now, it's like about $7,300 is the price it's being traded at. But for me personally, I feel the real value was, it was a people's digital currency. It was the first money of the people. And in this case, and people had decided on how they would want to trade it, what would be the future of it, how they would want to upgrade it. And in the beginning, it became mostly known as the nerd money, basically all the technology nerds who knew what was going around, and they were mostly interested in it. But as more and more applications started to develop around Bitcoin, more and more people started to learn about it, and more courses and a lot of online content was available. A lot of the layman people also jumped on board and started to expand this whole industry and build new solutions, new ideas, and many new use cases around the space. But one of the important things of Bitcoin is it's uncensorable and it's unbiased. It doesn't care if the person is a man, female, whatever religion or sexual orientation you have, or even if you're a machine. It just gives you an address and you can do transaction as long as you have your key. And a system of decentralized trust. I think this is the most important part. For like years and years, we were like building computers and IT systems. We could not have a system where we actually can make sure it is untamperable. It is not whatever digital bits that we are putting up there is not being changed or not being tampered with. And we didn't even have a detection mechanism. So we could never trust digital money or fully digital money. We could never trust digital documents, smart contracts, digital land titles, or digital certificates, because anybody can just tamper them or like copy and paste somebody else certificates or somebody else contract and create a new one. And in that case, because things was easily tamperable, there was no system of decentralized trust or even having trust systems online. So I got involved, I think about back in 2011. I believe there was around that time I was actually really looking into a lot of crypto. And in this case, I was actually looking more towards why actually Bitcoin matters. I actually bought some Bitcoin. I was trying to mine some Bitcoin. And then I was actually trying to understand why are people even spending some money into it? They don't even have anybody behind it. And I was just very curious when I actually learned about Bitcoin. That led me towards exploring its code base, the technology behind it. And I noticed it's actually about trust. One of the major problems that we have today that could not be digitized was digital trust. So I think that what lead towards what is, because right after Bitcoin was formed, everybody knew Bitcoin as a Bitcoin protocol, but they didn't know what was the underlying technology called. So somebody in the community came up with the name called blockchain. And today you will go online and search blockchain technology. You will find so many different definitions. And as the technologies, I feel that I can't do justice in few sentences by explaining blockchain, because if you look into AI and big data, or even IoT, you can actually explain that in 1 or 2 sentences, because they're just like one device having, like let's say if it's an AI, or let's say IoT, for example, it's a device that's connected to the internet, and you can actually use the protocols on it to basically do like certain activities or build certain use cases on it. But blockchain is bundles of technology. It is distributed ledger technology with blockchain, blockchain data. Sorry, I lost the word. So with blockchain being used as one of the ways of implementing DLT, and then they use peer-to-peer network to basically distribute the database and kind of communicate. And there's many layers of other technologies being used, consensus mechanism that are actually being used to actually kind of make sure that this whole technology stack works. So it's a bundle of technology together, working together to solve few problems, mainly the trust problem. So that's the reason when people talk about blockchain technology, it gets very confusing, because it is not one technology, it's multiple stacks of technology working together to solve a problem. So, but to simplify it for today, blockchain technology is one of the earlier successful implementation of a distributed ledger technology. I'll get into distributed ledger after this. But distributed ledger database is spread across several nodes. So it's kind of a database that is spread across several devices on a peer-to-peer network, where each can replicate. It depends on the protocol, because some do, but a lot of private DLT networks doesn't do that. And they saves identical copy. That also still depends on the protocol of a ledger, and updates itself independently. So there's no like master server that is trying to control it. All the devices are communicating with each other based on a set of rule or protocol, and trying to tell them, communicate between each other what to do next, which is the right database. And if anybody's trying to attack me, what should I do? and a set of rules that has been already been placed down there to kind of counter any problems or any kind of like conditions that are coming. Let's say if somebody is trying to attack the network, how should the network defend itself? How should the network protect the right ledgers and make sure there's no fake transaction being added into the network? And one of the other reasons why when we talk about blockchain, it gets a bit more tricky is because blockchain is not just about technology. We also talk a lot about social science. We talk about a lot about how socioeconomics as well, on how people will behave when certain actions has been taken. So in terms of blockchain protecting itself, a lot of networks kind of rely on economical measures. Let's say if anybody is trying to attack the network, we take away some of their stake or we take away some of their money. So in this case, people are disincentivized to attack it. Like in Bitcoin, if people are trying to attack the network, they have to spend a lot of electricity, and electricity costs money. So in this case, it is very hard or very difficult to attack the network because it costs you money to attack it. So there's many types of mechanisms and security mechanism that has been designed in many of these blockchain protocols, but generally it is on case-to-case basis, and it depends on the protocol and how you design it and what you're trying to protect. Because even in the database, it's just not financial assets or records. It can be many things. It can be certificates, land title, property, digital assets, and in digital assets, it can be finance, it can be stable coins, many things. So I thought I'll explain a bit of computer systems because a lot of people will be still new to computer systems. So there are a few types of computer systems, but generally it's centralized, decentralized, and distributed system. To explain it in simple terms, centralized is more like a common groups, like how we have groups formed in our schools and our universities. There's always one group leader who actually is generally the leader of the group, who's actually telling what to do and try to take all the information from their members and kind of try to make the decision on what will be the next move of the group. Let's say it's a hackathon, like maybe he can get everybody's opinion and decide what is the next thing he want to build, or maybe what would be the best idea to build. So, and they kind of coordinate the discussion in a network. But this is an issue. As more and more members started to increase, the single leader starts to get overloaded. Similarly, if there's more and more devices being connected to a bank server or a university service, they start to overload. So it depends on, so for years we didn't have much issue because our hardware was always accelerating much faster. And the growth of the hardware industry was much faster than our devices was catching up. But these days, we are having much more devices being connected online. That's the reason you can see it was a lot of these university systems were quite good, maybe like about 15 years back, 10 years back when they came out. But these days, they just doesn't cut it. A lot of the central system just doesn't cut it anymore. Because once, let's say if it's in university case, let's say it's a day where you want to register your courses, you will see your server will be on error 404 and it'll just go shut down. Because the architecture is the core architecture itself is a bit flawed. So that's where they started to come on and explore more decentralized manner. If you notice that your iFlix or your Facebook performs much better with a lot of times from your banking application, or a lot of times even from your university application, mostly these are and government applications as well. Because usually these are more centralized and governed kind of softwares, and a lot of times they actually use much outdated softwares as well. So in this case, they're kind of they usually perform slower than a lot of these decentralized applications. And in decentralized, you can see that most of the servers are usually close to the end locations, and they kind of duplicated. And in some cases, the data is like, let's say in Malaysian server, you have the database of all the Malaysian servers, Malaysian Facebook users here, for example. In this case, let's say you travel to Singapore, it might duplicate some of your data to the Singapore server, or it might, in certain cases, if it's a regulation restriction, they might just kind of VPN to the Malaysian server, for example. But in decentralized, to put it in a more layman term, it's more like how a study group should be. Everybody kind of knows certain things. So let's say I know about computers, some people might know about math, somebody might know about history, and we can all communicate whenever it's needed. Let's say I need to know something about history, I need something to be explained. I ask the history expert and he just shared to me the information. Same goes in the Facebook example. Let's say he's the Malaysian data record. Let's say I need something to know about user Harpreet Man. It shares me what is the information about Harpreet Man. But a distributed system, it's more like playing sports, playing games. So if you really look back and ask the question, who really taught you how to play sports, right? So let's say if you talk about badminton, who really taught you how to play? Or who really or maybe futsal, who really taught you how to play? A lot of it was because we just observed the game or somebody else playing it. We learned that these are the rules of how the game is being governed and how it's being played and how it's being scored. And then once we understand the rule, we go and participate in the game and learn. And whenever we are wrong, the kind of everybody who's playing the game actually advise you to correct what were you wrong. Let's say you're playing the ball outside of the court or outside of the playing ground. So and they know they will say that, oh, that's not allowed. You have to actually play in the ground. If you're out of the line, it's considered out. And if you score from out of the line, it's not counted, for example. And just by having the rules for thousands and thousands of years, the game has been there and it has been passed down centuries, because only thing you had to pass through was a set of game rules. So a lot of computer scientists decided, why can't we actually use this for computers? So this is where a lot of the ideas and fundamentals of distributed systems are. And in this case, let's say we give the same set of game rules to computers and tell them like, okay, I'm going to give you, these are the rules of this network, and we want to make this as a file sharing network. Okay, so in this case, let's say if anybody downloads the file, he becomes the person who's going to upload the file back, and he becomes one of the participants of the network, and he becomes a seeder. If anybody is trying to download the file, he have to have the full registry of all where the files like parts are, and he becomes a leecher and he can seed the file down. Yeah, if it sounds familiar to you, that's how the torrent network works. That are the rules of that network. So in that case, you can always, the torrent network can always, as long as the protocol exists and computers has the protocol, they can actually keep on communicating with each other and keep on transferring files. And in this case, it becomes a kind of unstoppable distributed network, which a lot of governments tried to shut down. In the end, they decided, okay, let's just embrace this and see what we can do with it. And actually, it fueled through a lot of other developments as well, especially improvements in cloud. Even a lot of the cloud technology is still based on distributed systems in a way. A lot of the earlier findings was mostly on distributed systems, on how they operate. So that has been used as a case study to build better cloud and better storage services. So a lot of people usually kind of think blockchain is just one technology, or only the whole blockchain scene and the crypto scene. They're kind of just talking about blockchain and just one technology stack. Actually, it is a whole side of an industry that is actually growing. There's distributed computing, distributed storage. So I can see there should be like about, at the moment should be about 57 people who's actually in the chat. So 57 people who are having their computers running at the moment, but mostly are just watching me presenting. So their computers are not doing any heavy load. What if I can actually take, during the ideal time, all the computing power and basically use that for doing some sort of other sort of computing. Let's say if I needed to do a rendering, or I need to do some sort of computing for let's say for a medical model or the new COVID virus model. I'm trying to see how can I find a cure for it, but I don't have enough power and I don't want to rent expensive from AWS. Why can't I just rent it from the people? So that can be some of the ideas that you can use from distributed computing, maybe even distributed graphics. Maybe you need access to other people's graphic cards to do AI modelings. So ideas like that has already exist in the crypto industry. There's a lot of areas where you can go and rent graphic card power or CPU powers from computers from the public, and they're encrypted, so your data is being protected. But if you really look into it, there's under the storage technologies, there's also distributed cloud file systems and also the ledger technology. If you notice that for many years, the accounts technology and like the file technologies have always been different. Even if you look in a lot of company structures, there's your file server and there's your ledger server or your account server. And because they have to be designed differently. Similarly in DLT as well. And in ledger technology, you can look into tech like there's many different forms, block lattice, DAG technology, blockchain technology. And under DAG, you also have Hashgraph, Tangle, and many more. I'm just trying to take like these 5 examples that are like quite mainstream now, but there's actually many more innovations that are coming up in the space. So in short, DLT is more of digitization of trust. It actually improves a lot of security. The next slide will be talking about this. It gives more transparency. It promotes transparency. Even today, even in between corporates, there's a lot of problem of transparency and trust. So in this case, there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of middlemen trying to solve and provide services in between and kind of costing the companies and at the same time costing the users of the companies on higher and more expensive services. Then we have decentralization and democratization of governance. We can actually have better governance if, let's say, we have, let's say right now, a government wanted to get opinions on how should be the next budget be allocated, what are the areas that are most affected, right? So in this case, a lot of it, they have to rely on the researchers and they have to rely on asking surveys. But what if we had one app, which was the Malaysian digital identity, everybody had our own digital identity, and we could log in into an application where we could go and do votings, let's say, where we can vote for the next policies, or we actually can suggest what are our opinions and how would we want to, the next budget to be, or what should we be doing, and that can also be the center of getting information from the government. So that would have been a really interesting app to have at this moment. At the same time, if let's say we already went to a place where we already have enough trust for voting for policies, maybe in future we can also vote for our politicians, once we are confident enough with the application and the security. And DLT also is very good for showing tamper resistance. So it's a lot of people usually say blockchain is immutable. No, nothing is immutable. As long as it's digital, it's going to be, the hard drives can get corrupted, the electric bits will definitely go off. Only thing immutable is if you kind of print it onto some glass shards or onto crystals or something and keep it. Other than that, everything digital will definitely can be wiped off. But the reason why blockchain is much better than a lot of the other protocols and technology is because the blockchain network kind of self-defends it and is highly distributed. So every country kind of have one server. You try to shut it down in Malaysia, the guys in Singapore kind of maybe still have it. You have somebody in India still have it, somebody in Russia still have it. And the database is kind of replicated around these places. So even if you try to shut down all the countries, there might be somebody somewhere having it. And it's very hard to even track who are the people actually running the nodes. So that's the reason government could not shut down Bitcoin for past 11 years. And now they're deciding to embrace it and kind of see how they can actually use this to create better applications. Programmability and trusted automations. So in this case, you can do better automation. Let's say if you want to do smart contracts, property, your rental, tenancy, smart contracts, and you can actually automate that. So what if I build a smart contract between me and my tenants for my rental? And in this case, every time when they keep paying me, basically my house and my utilities are on. And once they stop, the smart contract will trigger them warnings and notifications. If I'm really to the extreme, if there's an IoT device on the door and maybe the electric meter, maybe I will just shut it down as well. If they're not paying me. That's a smart contract that has already been, once the terms have been met. But let's say if the tenant say, no, I'm not going to agree to you shutting down my door or my electricity, I can't do it, even if that is the contract. If that is what the contract states. So in that kind of, there can be trust on both sides. What we agree on will be executed. So easier data access for participating parties. So in this case, since they're let's say in this case, the tenant agreement, there's easier access for both of them to see the contract, see what has been executed on the contract, what were the terms on the contract, and easy data access. One of the issues of a lot of the trusted industries problems is, especially in finance, in law, we don't get access to the data. So in terms of security, as I told you, is quite important. If you look into the example of Bitcoin, it has 99.98% uptime for the past 10 years. I think it's about the same for 11 years as well. For currently, it's more than 43 million users worldwide, running on an open and hostile environment. A lot of people are trying to hack it every day. And it kind of solves a lot of the DDoS attacks, Sybil attack, SQL injections, and many other side of attacks that being thrown at blockchain. It has a simple recovery and verification method, data temperament resistant. The way you want to collaborate is quite standardized already. Let's say if anybody wants to become a developer that can support Bitcoin, you actually can go up to their website and just join in their Git and try to request for to do some improvements or updates, reduce the cost of doing finance, because it's much cheaper to send Bitcoin today. I can send a Satoshi on Lightning Network in like 2 seconds to Australia, and he can decide if he want to spend it or he want to kind of cash it out in the local exchange there. Oops, sorry. Oops, yeah. So, and became a mechanism of digital trust. So in this case, you can see a lot of the security services. If let's say we look into running a bank today, we have to look into a huge security cost. We need to hire security engineers. We need to buy firewalls. We have to buy a lot of security softwares, which covers everything from applications to network to many different things. And on the other hand, what is the cost of running Bitcoin? There's no real company running it. So in this case, there's for the person who built Bitcoin, he didn't really have a cost. And everybody who actually runs the node has an incentive of running the node, so they don't even run the service. So in that case, running a fintech application in the blockchain side or the crypto side is actually really cheap, and it's still secure, and in this case can scale much faster. That's the reason in the past 4 years, we can see there has been a lot of hype and at the same time, a lot of growth. You can see there were a lot of applications that came up, and some applications...
It's very soon already.
Hello? Okay. And a lot of the applications actually grew up, like in size in terms of users, in terms of market cap and everything much faster than a lot of traditional fintech startups, a lot of traditional startups itself. And so moving into the opportunities into the blockchain industry. So I keep mentioning trusted industries from just now. These are like the industries that kind of act a lot like the middleman to do, financial transactions, do, kind of be more of a middleman providing support. It's not really, a lot of their work is not really to provide the end solution. So a lot of times they play more of the middleman role. So in this case, if you can see, finance, insurance are one of the biggest being destroyed right now. But not only them, even the healthcare IT services, a lot of the IT services today, just for an example, even today, let's say if I'm getting sick, if I go to a doctor there, he would not know what are my symptoms or what are my past symptoms, because all the health databases are not kind of interlinked. They don't even have a common way of identifying who I am, although they could have just used my IC number. But until today, there's no like kind of a Malaysian global financial, what they call healthcare database. So they do not know my symptoms. So I might go there and get diagnosed or get checked for coronavirus. Maybe I just have no common cough right now, right? So if let's say my symptoms kind of match there, they don't have my background or my history, I need to know what my history is. So I think that is like one of the things that we can solve. Technology can easily solve that. But and in this case, we also can look towards how we can do prevention, because these days we're using a lot of like health devices and trackers and a lot of tech that's already tracking how our vitals are. And in this case, we can actually do proper healthcare and wellness care kind of applications. So I feel that a lot of these trust industries, and especially in the finance side, will be affected and they will be disrupted. And I think in a kind of a clip, you can see finance, insurance, healthcare, governance, compliance, supply chain, legal services, property market, intellectual properties, resource management kind of companies kind of fade away. I will see there's a lot of new players will come in. I'm not telling that these companies will actually go away. What I'm trying to say, new industries and new business models will emerge that will disrupt the way we've been doing things previously. You can see every time when a lot of the tech companies come out, Amazon came up, they're already disrupting the traditional supply chains. They're already disrupting the traditional brick and mortar companies. And now I think is the time where we will see there's going to be a kind of new ways of doing finance and new ways of doing insurance, new way of doing many other applications that will be disrupted in the next batch. And to kind of summarize, I decided to build this chart. We'll talk about decentralized economy, but there's also going to be traditional companies and finance and banking who's actually still going to be there, but they're going to be still, they will adopt blockchain, but not fully decentralized. But just looking into decentralized economy, there's going to be something which is totally new. We're going to see new ways of payments, banking, insurance, credit providers, trading markets, lending, gambling options, trade financing, assets and risk management, financial analysis, and RegTech, because at the moment I'll see a lot of regulatory requirements. A lot of the regulators are still lacking behind of technology. They do not know how to govern it. I think there's going to be a lot of needs of providing tools and applications to regulators to kind of regulate the industry much efficiently. And once they can regulate it efficiently, more innovation will actually take part. And you have InsurTech, FinTech, KYC services. And I think there's going to be a lot of integration between what has been developed previously and what will be the new things out there. And one of the more exciting industries out there is definitely right now is gaming, because the gaming market is booming. And blockchain kind of brings a whole new ways of developing games, of managing assets, and a kind of trading assets as well. Esports, there's a lot of hype about the esports in these past few years, especially a lot in the millennial market, entertainment as well, social media, data market, collectibles, prop tech, law tech, and many more. I think there are actually many more industries that there's going to be use cases of blockchain in this industry. So I think it totally depends on the creativity and the domain expert. There might be somebody in travel tech who comes out and say, hey, maybe there is a problem in the industry that needs solving, and I think blockchain might be a good fit for it. So in this case, it totally depends on the domain experts to find what are the problems and how can they use blockchain as one of the solutions. And if you look into Malaysia, I wanted to compile since January, but I noticed there were just too many news articles and there was quite a lot of things happening. So I just decided to compile between March to April and April till today. So what if you just look into activities just happening in Malaysia, you already can see that actually things are picking up. So you can see Malaysia, we're talking about new regulations in digital token offerings, early February and in March as well. So they were talking about how can they actually release regulations and IEO licenses towards the second half of this year. And then Luno launch. Luno is one of the regulated exchange in Malaysia. If you want to buy legally Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Ripple, you actually can go up to Luno's website and buy those assets. And then we have a company called TM1 who said, I want to eliminate passwords. I want to use blockchain as a security mechanism. In this case, there is a possibility that we won't see much passwords in the future because cryptocurrencies made it much easier with private keys and securing private keys. I don't have to log in and remember my password most of the time. And I just need to keep this set of keys with myself or a set of recovery keys with myself. And it used to be, it's much safer than remembering passwords because they can be guessed, they can be hacked, or there's usually a lot of times when you type in into your browsers. Sometimes people do phishing. So in this case, there's always people trying to steal your password. So blockchain and using private keys tends to be a better model. So a lot of people are thinking of ways of eliminating passwords altogether. Then we had Binance, which is the largest crypto exchange in the world, decided to set up their support for Malaysian ringgit. Then after that, we can see the palm oil industries decided to look into embracing blockchain for traceability. I think there's also a discussion in the timber and a few other industries in Malaysia. The one that's mostly affected by trust issues as well. So oil palm has a big trust issue where we are being blamed for mainly causing deforestation in Southeast Asia because of oil for producing oil palm, and we are causing a lot, and which causes a lot of loss of habitat. So we have been blamed for that. Our government says no, we're actually taking the right preventive measures, and we're actually doing in proper order. But a lot of our buyers are not comfortable with the statements that we gave, and at the same time they don't trust that we're actually telling the truth. So it's very difficult to track and verify where this palm oil coming from. Was it ethically produced? Did it cause any harm to the environment? So there's a lot of issues towards that. And once you can trace and prove that, this game was actually produced in a sustainable manner, it actually can boost the palm oil industry's confidence, and at the same time, actually, there is a chance of actually having better sales in the palm oil industry. And then Luno did some partnership with Shopee, and then Binance said, okay, we're going to release our own debit cards, and we're going to start from Malaysia and Vietnam. And that is a big news for us. So now anybody can just take a Binance debit card, load their Bitcoin in it, and decide to go and spend, maybe let's say you want to buy a movie ticket or anything. All the transactions can happen seamlessly. So in this case, Binance debit card is more like a kind of another exchange that's going to be operating over there. Let's say you have your Bitcoin, you can load up your Bitcoin to this card and spend it wherever you want. And let's say even if you want to withdraw cash from ATMs, some of the benefits a lot of these debit cards are, because I use 10x and a few other old debit cards, the crypto debit cards that were already there. So whenever I travel, I have like this crypto debit cards. I can just go up to the ATM, let's say in Thailand or in Korea or Seoul, and I can just put it there, put it in there, and just withdraw some cash out. It works exactly like withdrawing the cash from your bank. They usually have some fees, some remittance fees as well, but usually it's similar to your banking fees already. And a lot of times it's actually quite reasonable. And it actually simplifies, because a lot of times your bank has additional requirements of telling you to prove or verify your card, where these cards are usually much more secure, and at the same time, your user experience is much better. Then in April, till today, we actually heard a good news on 1st of April that Synergy and Tokenize, the other two exchanges, also got all their full approval to actually onboard new users. So now you actually can go up on Synergy and on Tokenize and get on board as a new user and trade crypto legally. So in this case, it took quite some time for them to get there. It was quite a lot of hard work as well. But as of yesterday, all three exchanges are fully operational. And I think there are a few more who are sitting down in waiting lists to be out there as well. So this has been quite exciting, even just by having crypto legalized in terms of trading and owning, and exchanges legalized to operate in Malaysia. It is a strong message that Malaysia is in the game, and they would like to definitely go in and explore what would be the new ways to operate. So quickly going through the other opportunities in Malaysia, especially in the financial services, because they are the most use cases there today. I think people will be looking for crypto payment gateways. So if I can buy Bitcoins, I can hold Bitcoins, can I spend Bitcoins? That will be the next question people would want to ask. And and in this case, I think a crypto payment gateway is going to be one of the ways. Then a lot of people look into crypto post integrations as well, because we have a lot of e-wallets and everything is already integrated. So a lot of people are buying, because of e-wallets, a lot of shop owners and business owners decided to buy digital posts. And I think the next will be how can they integrate crypto into that, and e-wallet and card services as well. I hear a lot of discussion that there might be some integration, but they're just looking towards what are the regulatory and compliance that they have to do to get on board on that. I think remittance will play a strong pull because it's much cheaper to transmit money through crypto. It's much cheaper as well. So I can send a USDT from here to Australia. It's much cheaper, much faster, and I can exchange it locally there for a stable value. USDT is a stable coin, by the way. It's so if let's say you get $1, it's only going to be $1. It's pegged to $1. So in this case, you can, let's say you want to send $100. Let's say if there's a $1 fee, so you will get $99 in Australia. Where if you do it with banking, it's usually much larger percentage or much expensive remittance. In countries like Africa, remittance is a huge issue because the remittance fees can be up to 35%. So, and I think once these benefits are being realized especially towards the financial and banking sector, there will be a requirement for new financial infrastructures for banking. Royalty programs, because a lot of the crypto and blockchain royalty programs are global, so I can go in. These days we travel a lot, so in this case, not these days, of course, but I mean like generally in the past few years we have been traveling a lot. We can see large spikes in terms of people traveling globally, and people would want to build royalties programs that can actually work globally as well. So if let's say I go to the Grand Hyatt here in KL and I spend some money, I should be able to get the royalty programs and spend it in a Grand Hyatt in another country. Or a Starbucks here in Malaysia, I can still get the benefits in Starbucks in Singapore, because I would like to redeem in Singapore more because it's more expensive. Starbucks is more expensive there. I would like to redeem my points there instead of here if I'm traveling there all the time. And then goes towards crypto banking, escrows, custodian services, because there would be people who would want to hold their cryptos and like just for as the sake of investments, and maybe lend it out. Like exchanges like Binance, they provide you this service. You actually can hold USDT and get up to 6% interest rate per annum, and kind of lend it out. And there's many other options like crypto lotteries, crypto exchanges, and investment services. There's going to be more exchanges coming in. Decentralized exchange, I think it's not going to be legal yet, but I think people can find ways of complying with the government and still be a decentralized exchange. IEO operators, IEO service providers, in terms of IEO initial exchange offerings, there's going to be people who are going to provide consultation, technical support, technology support, like marketing services, PR services to all these IEO operators, investment services, and many other services around it. If let's say in second half when the guidelines goes operational, all these companies and all these services industries will start forming around it. Then decentralized finance, there's going to be, I hope to see more use cases on that from out of Malaysia itself. Crypto lending services. I think there are already few lending companies who are actually already interested to collateralize crypto. So you can go and keep your Bitcoin and get fiat. Let's say if you want to get ringgit, you can keep your crypto as an asset. I know like some people are already doing it, but there is no formal structure, or there's no proper like a full digital company that allow you to do that yet, or there's no app that allow you to do that. But there are already some money lenders who actually do that they say, okay, now you can keep your crypto with me, but I'll give you a certain amount, and once you give me back the money you owe me, I'll give you back your full amount of crypto. And they have ways of managing their accounts at the back as well. Other opportunities, we already have I think 2 games in Malaysia so far. We have blockchain-based games in Malaysia, but I hope to see much bigger games, much more interactive games. But digital collectible market is going to be huge in the next few years. We're already having huge markets in terms of Dota and a lot of free-to-play games. But in the next few years, I think people will look into how can they take their collectibles across different games. How can they take the collectible and trade it? How can they truly own their collectible in video games? I think that's going to be the next move. And people also use gaming for betting, for gambling and stuff like that. And I think that is also going to grow up much faster. And then if you look into esport, I think one of the esports and even sports actually, people are looking into ways of funding the teams and their players and the football players. There are ways of, there are applications where they fund talented users from I believe that was in Japan. I can't remember the project, but there is applications out there where you can fund talent from the young age until he becomes a sport player. There are applications like that are out there. And I think in Malaysia, especially in our football sport industry and e-sport industry, I think there's going to be a lot of use cases coming up towards this industry sector. Entertainment, I think social media is a big one. Just to show you some examples. This is Steemit. This works more like a blog post / Facebook. So it is more of an application where you can go up and kind of post what do you feel like. Let's say you talk about a topic like this guy is talking about Steeman's witnesses. Some people are talking about the new Hive platform, and they actually can come up and post the blog post, and they actually can earn real money. So in this case, I can actually go up and vote people, and the network will incentivize the users with some money. So in this case, you actually get posted and you get valued for whatever post you make. And these days, there's even a new platform called Hive, which is also in operation, which actually does the same thing. And I think in Malaysia as well, there's going to be more people looking into providing some sort of social medias, or like ways to share contents or streaming platforms. They are actually much fairer streaming platforms, especially content providers for music, sounds, movies, and short films. So and they don't get their places on Netflix or Spotify all the time, or they don't get the viewership that they want. There are platforms out there that actually allow you to go up and put up your content, and as you get paid, immediately you get reimbursed with your payment. So let's say the platform takes a 10% fees. So somebody paid you $1, 90 cents is immediately in your account, and you can withdraw it or use it however you want it. So there are platforms out there that actually help you to do that. And I think there's also other digital collectibles, especially like art, jewelry. I remember there was a use case in Korea where they were looking into, let's say if I want to go and buy a jewelry, but I don't want to wear the jewelry, I'm just buying it as a sake of investment. You can buy the jewelry, put it up with the seller. They usually keep it up in their vaults, but the ownership of the jewelry is mine. I can take the jewelry and even trade it. Let's say if I don't want the jewelry anymore, I can trade it on this online platform, and the new owner actually owns the jewelry right now. But there are only going to be one of that jewelry. There cannot be a duplicate in the platform. So I can't be selling that jewelry twice. So that level of trust and everything is created by blockchain technology. And there's many other mechanisms to make sure that there's no fraud or like people trying to cheat in the system. Healthcare and wellness, especially data access, I think is going to be a big one. If I can just take up my platform, let's just talk about, like, if I wanted to build a healthcare system on Bitcoin, I could have just taken my address and just walk to the next clinic and show him my address. He scan my address and he knows what's my healthcare problem. And I can just click approve to allow him to access my data. So I think that would have been a much easier way of collecting data. And prop tech, I think a lot of people are looking into REITs, how they actually can have, they can kind of do micro investments and even large investments into real estates, not only in Malaysia, but globally. There are a lot of companies who do REITs and development outside of Malaysia as well. And they're constantly looking for new ways of bringing investments and revenues to their businesses. I think prop tech is definitely one of the most exciting ones. And law tech, I think there's a lot of stuff we can do in law tech as well. But as fast as they start to catch up, I think research and development is highly needed in this space. I think a lot of universities, even there's research grants this year. In the last budget for 2020, we had research grants for blockchain technology, and it was specified in the budget itself that they want to give more focus in this industry. I think talent development. There were a few articles stating that Malaysia is still in huge talent shortage in terms of like providing for the industry itself. On my hand, I have friends coming in, the weeks before COVID and telling me, hey, Harpreet, I need to get 100 developers. Some other guys is like, oh, Harpreet, I need 150 developers. I am setting up this new branch in JB. I need to get more developers there, and I want to scale fast. And I have the capital for it, but I can't find the talent. I think
Sorry, Harpreet,
yeah.
sorry, Harpreet, to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but I just want to let you know that it's already 11. So yes, if you could inform us how much time it's still needed from your side to finish your presentation.
Okay, I think give me another 3 minutes. I'll just finish the slides and then we'll
Okay.
open up to Q&A.
Okay, and for the Q&A, please write your questions in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, I think talent development, online voting, as I shared earlier, and intellectual properties. Because blockchain, if you can put it up there, I think we can truly create a global intellectual property registry. At the moment, it's still very expensive to kind of go up and get your IPs. And I think that problem is actually very simple to solve. If we actually can all get together and kind of endorse one platform and everybody work on that instead of like doing how we are doing it today. So challenges, as I told you, there's going to be very generic kind of challenges. One of the major issues is interoperability. A lot of traditional systems or financial systems are built with different technologies. Even in between of the new blockchains, there's a lot of groups and factions building up technologies and new technologies between themselves that are not interoperable. But I think this challenge is being solved right now. A lot of new startups and companies came up and they started to build more interoperable solutions and protocols and technologies. And even the technologies that are available today are trying to find ways to better integrate with what is already existing out there. And I think methodology, there's no real blockchain development methodology. If you look into a lot of the software development methodologies are not really that applicable to the blockchain applications. And because I think there should be new methodologies to support how a blockchain applications and how blockchain applications should be managed, how their security should be managed, how should they be audited, what should be the procedures to do that. I think here where universities and R&Ds will have a lot of work and research opportunities to jump on and see how can they create all the systems. And then we have legacy networks. So a lot of old platforms, let's say if a financial side want to adopt private blockchains, they have a lot of legacy issues to pass by. Still, interoperability and legacy networks are somewhere similar there. Mass adoption. I think one of the problems was the narrative of blockchain. Whenever we go up and sell blockchain, it just sounds too technical. And a lot of people become resistant when they don't understand what you're trying to sell. So in this case, mass adoption has become quite difficult. And plus, a lot of the application today, it has been hyped, but they're still in their infancy stage. They're still young. And in this case, they have never got a lot of the adoption that they were looking for. And I think also skill set. That's the reason I was quite giving some emphasis on talent development, because I feel that a lot of the tech stack that has been used in the space and is being created in the space is fairly new. Writing smart contract, it has its own languages. Blockchain has it. A lot of blockchain are using very specific languages and new languages, and they have their own terms. So definitely there's no skill set out there who understand what is being built in the space. So we have to nurture the new set of talent to actually understand what is going on in the space. And there's also cost challenges. A lot of businesses do not like to invest into IT. I think COVID will be a new opportunity for, like for a lot of companies to reconsider how they're actually operating and how can they invest into kind of doing digital transformation in their company. So a lot of them were resistant on spending into tech and technology solutions to make sure that they get more profitable that year, but they were not looking at improving their systems. And I think now when they look into, when there's global shutdown, people can't go to work, a lot of companies are suffering because they're not digital enough to be, reliant to work from home or kind of work globally or work on itself. They need people kind of pulling plugs all the time at the office itself. So now I think a lot of companies will look into new policies and new ways to solve a lot of these issues. And I think it actually will work in favor for a lot of these digital transformation companies. So I think these are among some of the challenges that we have there. It's quite generic. And I think regulation, I think I missed to put that there. Regulation was still a challenge. In Malaysia, I think regulation is getting more and more clearer. I hope by next year we also get a payment regulation cleared out. So in this case, we know like how we can do payments and things like that. And in second half, we get the IO regulation. So companies in Malaysia can build applications and fundraise through IEO platforms and sell their tokens legally in Malaysia. I think that'll be a really good in this a good step in the right direction. And moving next, I think I would like to share about the course that you're working with iTrade. So definitely it's not enough to talk about blockchain in 1 hour. There's a lot of stuff that is happening in this industry. So we're working on blockchain with a 5 days course where we're going to talk about blockchain, especially for developers. We're also going to have a more business people-centric course coming on later as well. As go for the developers, the blockchain certified associate developer course, it is more focused towards understanding what is blockchain, why blockchain was formed, what are the reasons behind using this specific tech stacks, and then after that, developing your own blockchain, your own smart contract, and understanding how can you deploy your own protocols, and truly going through every single detail until you know how to build your own blockchain and build your applications. So I think that's what the 5 days is all about. It's about having the skill sets to understand, even deploy your own networks and build your own use cases around this space. So once you understand all the deep level technologies that are there, you'll be able to go out to any blockchain companies and join in a job, because all the skills are high in demand. I think most blockchain developers are getting a very premium salary at the moment as well. And talking about the exam, there's going to be an exam which is going to be consisting of the 70% of the mark. It's just 40%, 40 questions, multi-choice questions, and another 30% will come in from we're going to be doing a bit of coursework. We're going to do some kind of small exercises in the class, especially like deploying your own network, and then we'll score on like how well did you execute that exercises. And this is the course outline. Mainly day one we talk about the theory. Today I'll say that there's actually a lot of stuff that goes into blockchain, and there's no place out there that actually talks about the level 0 of what exactly the technology is about. Everybody likes to jump to day 2. A lot of people likes to jump on day 2 and say, let's just build it. But the problem is, I have worked with so many developers in my life, they just don't understand what is blockchain. They're just building whatever is being done for them. But whenever I kind of change the scenario, they can't think on their own. They can't really build or solve the problem. I think we don't need like people who can just go in and write codes. We need people who can solve the problem and write the code, and kind of find innovative solutions in the space. That's the reason the theory, we gave quite emphasis on day 1, going on second day, let's going on hands-on. Day 3, we talk about more mainly towards how you can get started in the space, doing your own mining processes, blockchain backend. And day 4, we do theory and hands-on activity, and we'll be having some coursework there. And day 5 is we'll be finishing with how we actually can apply this in businesses. We'll go in much deeper than what we discussed today. We have few use cases running out there and exam. So I think generally that is the basic course outline, and you can get this on iTrain's website. And it's going towards blockchain talent. It's high in demand, and a lot of big companies are actually hiring them right now. You actually can just have a simple Google to find that out. And in Malaysia, interestingly, I checked on HackerRank, and I was shocked to see that actually Malaysia was one of the top people in the distributed system. And if you were hearing my talk since morning, blockchain is a subset of that. And I was surprised, but then when I actually really noticed, I actually had few lecturers who actually had distributed system PhD. And universities like Unitan and a few other guys actually do teach things like grid computing. They teach about distributed systems, but there was no much applications. I think there will be a chance for Malaysia to take a lot of these old distributed system courses that were already out there, kind of transition this towards the new industry and become a leader in distributed systems, in the distributed system space and in the blockchain space. I think that's all for me from today. I'll pass, and I think let's look into the questions.
Thank you very much, Harpreet, for the presentation. It was very valuable indeed. So yes, I'm sharing now. You can access the feedback form. And once you fill out the feedback form, you will also gain access to the presentation and the recording. The recording will be uploaded after a while. Probably you will be able to see it tomorrow. But we will also follow up with everybody who signed up and registered, so you will receive the presentation also in your email. Okay, but as I can see, yes. So some of the questions towards you, Harpreet,
Yes.
is how secure is blockchain, and why some of the financial institutes are still reluctant to transform using blockchain? It has been a while in the market already.
So as I was actually shared in my presentation earlier, blockchain has been there for 10 years in the most hostile environment, and it never got shut down till today. And in terms of its database, and the integrity of the database is still intact. If you try to put most of the other banking institute in the same scenario, I think most of them will fail, and they will not have the security to actually kind of resist such attacks and such kind of hostility towards them as well. So if you talk about the security of blockchain, definitely I think is one of the most secure systems out there, and is one of the most secure ideas as well. And if you look generally in terms of cryptos, most of the cryptos has not been hacked. If you're talking about Bitcoin and Bitcoin hacks, mostly they have been exchange hacks until today. Generally, people manage to go and get your password, and they log into your account and steal your money. That's what they did. So there has not been a direct successful attack on like Bitcoin or many of the big blockchains that were successful. And and I'll say, as goes for banks, why they're still resistant, I think a lot of it has to do with regulation. And if you really look into how blockchain's beginning narratives was, or crypto's beginning narratives was, they were against banks since day one. They were trying to build a whole new industry and space against the banking sectors. But there are also few people, like we have seen in the past few years emerged, who actually are supporting the banks to adopt technologies. And if you look into in Malaysia, HSBC has done their letter credit. They have adopted, like new payment services. Maybe I think CIMB has adopted Ripple as one of the ways of doing remittance. Banks are adopting, but they are kind of adopting as the regulation gives them the way to, and as they see where is their fit and where are the places they can play. There are also banks who are looking to get an exchange license in Malaysia and IU operation license in Malaysia. They are already in the scene, but they're just not very vocal about it. And they're trying to see where can they position themselves. Next question, I think.
Yes, so the next question is, can blockchain be used in money laundering?
Blockchain is a technology. It's like asking, can internet be used in money laundering, right? So in this case, I'll say that cryptos, yes. There are cryptos being money laundered, but if you look into the reports of crypto money laundering versus our traditional finance money laundering, it's way big difference. Crypto money laundering is for small players. A lot of the big money laundering, especially for criminals, politicians, and a lot of the big industries, is still in the banking sector. And actually, there were reports that were put out. Although a lot of the regulators use that crypto is a way for money laundering, that's the reason they do not want to accept it. But the narrative has started to change, because it's much better to regulate the industry to identify who are the people sending out in and out money than not regulating it at all. So I think as more and more regulations come in place, crypto the money laundering issue can be solved in the space. Yeah, next question.
Yeah, all right, thank you so much for the answer. And what are the opportunities you see in supply chain using blockchain in Malaysia?
I think supply chain is a huge use case. It's a multi-trillion dollar industry. Everything kind of relies on our supply chain. So in this case, if you see in Malaysia, as I gave the oil palm example earlier, we have a lot of trust issue in a lot of our supply chains. Look into the durian supply chain, or the oil palm supply chain, the timber supply chain. We do export a lot of our natural resources, but because of a lot of like a negative clashback from a lot of these environmentalist people out there, that we are actually producing our exports with an unsustainable manner, and we have no way to prove it or track it. There is illegal activities happening in Malaysia. There is deforestation happening in Malaysia, but not every single company is doing it. Some companies are doing it in the ethical manner, but once their product goes into the market, there's no way of tracking where their product went. So, and even let's say if there was a disease outbreak, let's say there was a chicken farm or maybe a farm of chicken was infected with some sort of virus or bacteria, and once they go into the market, we have no traceability. It's very difficult to call out the right product, because once from a supplier it went to a distributor or a packager or a reseller, once it goes into that, you just don't know where the where the products has went. So supply chain is going to be a huge use case, especially for traceability. But then I think the bigger side and the more beneficial side will be trade finance. What if I can get assets? What if I can track my assets? Can I get financing on the asset? I think that is going to be a huge, huge opportunity. I think there's a product called V-Trade. V.trade is the website. You should check it out. It's actually a huge consortium in trade financing consortium in UK, and they kind of track their products and finance their product. I think that's going to be a really good use case for Malaysia.
Can you elaborate more on travel tech?
Travel tech, I think some of the pain points I noted in travel tech is people are asking me how can they spend their money. I don't like to trade a lot of my exchange my money to every single currency. I don't like to keep for a lot of foreign currencies as well, and I usually lose a lot in currency FX rates. So a lot of travel tech startups that I met and I discussed with, they was finding ways on how can they use cryptos to spend outside. How can they incentivize people for traveling? So let's say if you actually go up to certain places, you actually can go and build games or AR games in this area where people can go up to the place and go and collect some digital points. So ideas like that has been flowed on in travel tech, and it has been quite successful. There are like few products, few ideas out there that actually has started to embrace AR, crypto, and AI together to kind of solve problems. Another thing is reviews. How do you know which is the right genuine reviews? And how can you incentivize for giving genuine reviews? So there's also people looking into travel tech, and also traceability. Let's say if in today's environment, one of the real problem we are having is tracking people's movement. But then it also becomes a privacy concern of tracking people's movement, right? So what if you can have a way to still be private, but once you are known that you're exposed to a COVID patient or a COVID infected person, then you actually can share your data and kind of guess which were the next persons that might have been infected. So in this case, we can track down most of these cases much easily, but based on your permission. If we do it on our traditional system, there are difficulty of protecting and there are difficulties of ensuring that you have full privacy of your data. Next, WE trade. Okay, yeah, next question.
Yes, so the next question is, what are your comments on the hacking and stealing of funds by hackers on Bitcoin exchanges so far? And does it relate in any way to the security and robustness of blockchain itself?
I'll say that hacking will always happen. It happened in every single business. Banks get hacked all the time. Governments get hacked all the time, but we don't really hear a lot of the news. If you start Googling, you will notice that 2 years back, I believe most of our database was being leaked. If you're wondering how you're getting all the scam calls, it's because most of our telcos, government, banks, all has been hacked and all their database is already online. So hacking happens all the time, happens in all businesses. But crypto gets a lot of the limelight of the media whenever they get hacked. One. Number two, a lot of this reason they got hacked is because a lot of these companies behind doesn't have the methodologies or the security regulations in place yet. Because government doesn't tell you what are the security measures that has been taken. There's no regulation behind it. It's on best effort. So companies that are responsible with your funds, they want to grow sustainably, and they don't want to get hacked, they take all the precautionary measures to build a good exchange and keep your funds secure. And a lot of times they also find ways, if let's say if they get hacked, do they have funds to back it up or insure it? So even these days, insurance companies are producing packages and plans for exchange companies. I'm not so sure about Malaysia, if we already have private packages for our insurance companies, but I think they should have. And in this case, their funds can be saved. And hacks will always happen. And all the exchanges and financial players just have to be a step ahead. But I will say that it is not a hindrance towards the growth of Bitcoin. What all this hacks actually proves that blockchain is much safer system, because if you really look into the funds that has been stolen from fintech companies, from banks, and from crypto is a small part of it. And even a lot of the mistakes or hacks that happen on exchanges were very, silly mistakes, internal jobs, or scams. If you really go up and sit down and do analysis of all the hacks, a lot of them were silly mistakes. They were people just lost their private keys or internal jobs. People kind of run away with the passwords, and some of them were scams, and somebody died. So there were some of the cases of the crypto side, because there were no proper processes or security measures in place. And I think there's no standard for that. If we actually have a standard and a proper security measure that every exchange should take place, at least. So in this case, I think there will be much more secure exchanges, which I believe most of the Malaysian exchanges has already started. So all the exchanges in Malaysia who got the approval right now, they actually have to go through a few security measures. Okay, next question.
Yeah. In what way blockchain can contribute in terms of marketing?
In marketing, because they actually some really good use cases, incentivizing for marketing. These days we get a lot of invasive ads. There's so many ads that keep on popping up on your browser. I don't want to see all that ads. I just want to see ads that actually will bring me value. So there are certain projects, example Brave.com. It's a new browser that blocks most of the ads. But let's say you want to select some ads or something. If you view them, you actually get incentivized in Brave token. And you even can contribute back to websites. You can contribute back to the people who are providing you the ads. There are many different mechanisms. There are also search engines that incentivize you for selling the data. So now if you go on Google, you search something, you don't get paid for anything. And Google actually get paid for your search results by selling ads. But there are websites out there that does the same business model, but they incentivize you in token for every time you use it. There's an application called Presearch, where you can just type in all your searches from there, and they will actually pay you in tokens, and you can liquidate the tokens out for actual ringgits, and it's legal in Malaysia now. Okay, and I think there's a lot of other ways of helping marketings as well. And a lot of marketing, especially a lot of these new startups and projects and out there today, would like to find new ways to reach out to the masses. So I think one of the profitable businesses are actually marketing services for blockchain industries and companies. Okay, I think I answered that. Next question.
Thank you. And what would be the suggestion to enhance the mass adoption of the users?
I think in mass adoption is, I think a lot of it goes on how you sell your idea or your story or your product. I think one of the issues with a lot of early blockchain projects were, we sell a very difficult narrative. We told them the stories of blockchain and everything, and all cryptocurrency and how complicated it is and how wonderful it is, but we never sell you what problem we're really trying to solve. I think now, since we already have the technologies are getting quite mature, there's more and more people out there who are listening about all these technologies booming. I think it's time to pick some problems, solve them, and give a good experience to the users. I think that will drive a lot of the mass adoption problems that we're having. So if you, let's say, if I have a way of telling you that you're going to save money and on your next finance, or you're going to get money for doing your finance, a lot of people will be interested. They will be willing to go the extent to learn new things or new product or new service. If let's say there is a product that is actually helping them to solve their issues. Let's say if I told you that I can send, I have an application that can do remittance much cheaper from you. You're going to save 8 ringgit every time you do your remittance. And in this case, people will easily go and adopt it. And if the experience is good, is trustworthy, people will adopt it. Mass adoption will happen. And I'll say the narrative, the story has to change. Stop selling the tech, stop selling the use case, I think is the most important part right now.
All right, thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
Is it possible to identify the individual companies, organizations from the blockchain transaction, and is it trustable in case of fraud, scam, or getting cheated?
Sorry, can you repeat the first part of the question?
Is it possible to identify the individual companies or organizations from the blockchain transaction, and is it trustable in case of fraud?
So there is ways to actually identify which are the companies. There's a lot of, especially when we look into exchanges or big financial institutes that are in the crypto space, they kind of go out and tell a lot of these explorers that what is their addresses, what are the addresses they use in sake of transparency. They are trackable. You can actually track what are the transactions happening from that exchange, or what are the transactions that are happening from this particular financial service, for example, and you can track them, and you can look into the transaction, and usually they're quite trustable as well, because trust is a very personal thing. If you want to trust something, you have to try it, you have to experience. As long as they provide your need and your expectations, you kind of stand to trust it. And if doesn't fulfill that need, doesn't fulfill your trust it, right? So if in terms of trustable, yes, I have seen a lot of applications that I trust out there. In terms of are they secure? Yes, they are secure. Do I know how to track them? Yes, I can see the applications out there. But not all the companies or individuals and everything can be traced, because they do not publish their accounts or their addresses. But major big finance players, like exchanges or crypto banking or loan providers, they usually have it. You can go on Etherscan to check Ethereum addresses, on blockchain.com to check Bitcoin addresses, and there's many other explorers for every single crypto or protocol out there. I think that answered that.
Thank you. So the next question is about privacy again. I think you've answered that it's as far as possible, it's taken care of. But who is governing the security of the blockchain transactions?
So I mean, if we look into blockchain, as I told you, it's a technology stack, right? So in this case, when you talk about who's governing the internet, everybody is actually playing some of their role, but it's a shared kind of a technology, right? The internet. So in this case, in Malaysia, if you talk about in terms of regulating it, we have the government, but it doesn't take that much of steps in terms of maintaining or managing the platform. The telcos are doing their part, the government is doing their part, the providers and technology providers are doing their part. Similarly in blockchain as well, blockchain is the technology. Every single application has its own way of governing, and is his own way of managing, and his own way of providing trust in the ecosystem. So if we talk about Bitcoin, it is actually governed by the miners. All the miners have these applications, and they run the miners, and the protocol kind of self-governs with the miners. If anybody is running the miner, they have the full blockchain, the application is running. It's the computer governing itself. Same goes with Ethereum. In certain cases, in certain applications, there are people who are selected to govern. Like for example, Hedera Hashgraph, they kind of get council members. Like recently, Google has joined them. They have I think about 7 or 8 council member right now, I think, and all of them are like big banks and big financial players and companies, credible companies who are governing their platform. And every platform will have a different governance model. I think I answered that already.
Yes,
Next.
Thank you. Yeah. So the next question is, in your opinion, which development platform is more suitable for blockchain applications, Geth or NEM? So
Geth is just one of the ways of using Ethereum and communicating with Ethereum. Ethereum has other ways of interacting as well in Java and other applications. There's just Geth is their go for Ethereum way of interacting with the blockchain. if you look into which is better, I will say it totally depends on your use case. So Ethereum has its own principles, its own fundamentals, in its own core values. NAM has its own. NAM is faster than Ethereum if you talk about comparing them one to one, but Ethereum is much widespread. It's the most adopted protocol at the moment. NAM has its own advantages, Ethereum has its own advantages. Instead of comparing where to develop, it's which platform you want to be on, what is the application you're trying to develop. Let's say if you're trying to develop an application that you want to be widespread and you want easily integrating with most of the financial institutes and most of the current crypto financial institutes, then maybe Ethereum goes with you. If you want local support in Malaysia, and you want to communicate with the people here, you want to build a trust with the people behind this, NAM has a really good Malaysian local presence. It's developed by Malaysians, and then you can go up and meet them. It totally depends on what use case you're developing, what is the best for the use case, and then it's just a matter of the technology is just trying to facilitate what you're trying to build. And you just need to understand which protocol works best for you. It's the technology stack. If you're trying to learning, both of them you have to learn from zero. If you're trying to learn on Ethereum, you have to learn from zero as well. If you're going to be on NAM, you're going to learn from zero as well. I think that answers that.
Yeah, so the last two questions. Yeah. Can a blockchain domain be hacked?
Domain means because there's in blockchain domains, there are domains that are running on the blockchain systems, which are the decentralized domains. And there's also domains that just like Binance.com and everything, which are just provided by regular cloud providers. Blockchain domains is generally they're unhackable. If let's say if you don't lose your private key, the domain is always with you. If the one which is provided on the cloud, like let's say Binance.com or something, yes, that can be hacked. Depends on the security of the provider or the domain.
All right. And the last question is, can someone in their 30s embark on a career as blockchain developer without any formal education or certificates?
It totally depends on the person. If you really ask me, if you're in 30s and if you have the needs to learn, because like on my side, I actually learned a lot of this process on myself. There was no certification back then, or there was no other trainings that would be providing out there when I got started into the space. So can you do it? If you have the interest, if you have the curiosity that is needed in this space, you can do it on your own, no matter the age. My CTO is, I think, much older than me. He's about 40 something. Very curious. I think age is, and when I started in the space, I was 19. So indeed, I'll say that age is just a number. It totally depends on your interest, the amount of curiosity you have, how excited you are about the space, and what problem you're trying to solve. So that's not the matter. But I think it's quite interesting to have a lot of these trainings provided now, the certification provided now, because it gives you credibility in the space. But even if you're holding a certificate, but you can't program, you can't write any blockchain application, then the certificate and the training is not really bringing you much value. So I'll say, yes, you can do it, but totally depends on your interest.
Okay, but thank you very much, Harpreet, for the answers and also for the presentation. It was very, very, very valuable. And I welcome everybody to fill out the feedback form as well, so you will gain access to the presentation slides and the recording once it's uploaded. So yes, thank you all for joining. Thank you, Harpreet. And yes, if there are more questions, you can visit itrain.com.mi website and also send an email to info@itrain.com.mi. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you and stay safe.
Okay, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining.